Hi, this is Chiro. In this video, we'll talk about my thoughts on investing in Nikola Corporation as of the end of August, start of September 2020. If you enjoy this type of content, consider subscribing or check out my previous video where I discuss another company I'm invested in, Hyliion. Before we begin, just a quick disclaimer that I am not a qualified investment advisor, and this video is not intended to be investment advice. I have investments in Nikola, but I am not sponsored or otherwise affiliated with them. If you're only interested in hearing about potential investment strategies, you may want to skip ahead a bit. I've provided timestamps in the video description. There's a lot of buzz today about ways we as human beings can do things in more environmentally conscious and sustainable ways, such as through renewable energy, electric vehicles, or using alternate fuel sources. There's debates about the pros and cons to any approach, and Nikola's approach is no exception. Nikola Corp, or Nikola, which trades under the ticker NKLA, aims to produce zero-emissions vehicles and pave the way for storing energy in the form of hydrogen. The hydrogen would be generated through electrolysis that can later be used as fuel in a hydrogen fuel cell. Their vehicles are scheduled for release as early as 2021, but mostly in or after 2022, and includes 3 hydrogen or electric semis, an electric garbage truck, and an electric or electric fuel cell hybrid pickup truck called the Nikola Badger. Nikola also has electric powersport products coming down the pipeline, because why not? With all that said, Nikola's biggest bet is probably on hydrogen. As a fuel, it produces water when it burns, and their executive chairman Trevor Milton says that Nikola has or will have deals in place to produce hydrogen from renewable sources such as solar and wind that will allow hydrogen to be produced at currently unimaginably low costs. If successful, their sales of hydrogen as a storage medium for energy and as revenue to supply their own trucks will be a home run like no other. I can't cover every nuance of the company in this short video, but hopefully this gives you a decent idea of what the company aims to do. Everything I just talked about are future plans that Nikola says they are working on, so it might not be a surprise to hear that Nikola is a hotly debated stock. There are people that think it's a fraud and that the company is due for a reckoning, a la bankruptcy. And there are others that think the company is on track to revolutionize energy and transportation. Their executive chairman, Trevor Milton, is an active spokesperson for Nikola, releasing videos and hyping up upcoming events, which unfortunately seems to divide people further. So what do I make of this? I made a personality quiz to help me and you decide. Let me know your result in the comments below. The first question is, do you like Nikola's executive chairman? No. That's actually the only question. Who would have guessed? But honestly, I just think he's louder and prouder about Nikola's success than I like, at a time where a lot is yet to be proven, and when there are a lot of things entirely outside of Nikola's control that can go wrong. I think his attitude puts a lot of people off, but enough of that. Let's instead explore my thoughts about Nikola in terms of made-up milestones and a made-up likelihood of reaching it meter. Our first milestone is, are they a company? And yes it is. Are they a legitimate business? Almost certainly, yeah. Do I like their vision? I do like their vision, and the more ways we pursue environmental sustainability, the better. Do I think it's possible to achieve their vision? I think so, but there's always the possibility that it doesn't happen or something better comes up. Do people want their products? In general, I think enough people do, but it's too far ahead to say for sure. Do I think it's possible for them or their subcontractors to produce vehicles? Most likely yes, but I can definitely see there being a lot of challenges. Do I think hydrogen is a viable way to store energy? Maybe yes, but I haven't seen enough of the technology to confidently say so. Will the infrastructure for hydrogen exist? Yes, I think to some degree it will. Will semis adopt hydrogen as a fuel? Nikola intends to build fueling stations at locations based on customer routes, so this shouldn't be a problem. Will vehicles adopt hydrogen as a fuel? For this, I find it hard to imagine hydrogen generating or fuel stations being accessible to the level of, say, gas stations or EV charging stations, so probably not. Do I think hydrogen can be made cheaply enough? At this point, the normal price for hydrogen is about $16 per kilogram, which isn't cost competitive with gasoline, not to mention the cost to set up all the additional infrastructure. Trevor talks about setting up contracts to use excess energy from renewables and thinks it can get to as low as $2 to $3. Conceptually, this makes sense, and anything can happen, but at this point, it's a long shot. At this point, do I think they would succeed? Yes, and by this point I'm sure at least a 0 or 2 will have found their way into Nikola's market cap. So what I'm getting at is that a lot has to go right before I consider Nikola successful in achieving their vision, but also that accomplishing things along the way will help confirm whether they're on track. The question I or any other investor needs to answer is, based on my level of certainty, when we won't know some answers for years to come, How much am I willing to pay? Another way to put it is that Nikola isn't some kind of Schrodinger's box of either being a fraud or a runaway success. It's most likely somewhere in between. In the end, we need to decide whether the potential is worth the risk. Having discussed the company at length, I'm going to take the opportunity to re-emphasize this disclaimer here before moving on to the investment strategies. In brief, I am cautiously optimistic about Nikola and I think a lot remains to be proven. For now, I'm here to enjoy the roller coaster. I'm going to be comparing the investment strategies by the maximum risk and reward of each strategy and what I'll call sleepability, which describes how well I would sleep at night employing each strategy. Prices I quote are approximate to what they were at the time of recording and rounded for simplicity. Buying shares is a simple and pretty straightforward strategy. If Nikola ends up bankrupt, you stand to lose a maximum of the current share price of around $40. But there is no cap to the potential reward, as the shares could rise indefinitely. It's a good way to bet on the company, but just because of the uncertainty of betting on Nikola at this point of their growth, I rate the sleepability a 7. The next strategy is to buy covered calls. This is where you buy shares but sell a call at a higher strike price. You get paid a premium for doing so, but limit your potential upside. Obviously, the expiry date and the strike price will affect these numbers, but looking at calls a few months out, the premium for a $50 strike is around $7. With this, you would stand to lose a maximum of $33 if Nikola went bankrupt. That is, the price of the shares minus the premium you received, but you would still stand to gain a solid $17. That is, the difference between the current share price and the $50 strike plus the $7 premium. Obviously, the strikes and expiry dates of the call can be adjusted to fit your risk tolerance. Personally, I sold fairly deep in the money calls so that even if shares drop by say 30%, I still come out with the same premium due to the volatility of the stock and implied value. As a result, I'm missing out on almost any additional upside, but given production won't start until at least 2021, I don't personally see a ton of reason for the stock to move in either direction over the next few months. Maybe Nikola will unveil some new partnerships, or maybe the Nikola World 2020 event will blow everyone's mind, or maybe it'll flop. No one really knows, but I'm not losing any sleep on it. This gets a 9 out of 10 for sleepability, and my gold star. If limiting your upside makes you sad, you could consider protecting your investment by buying a put instead, or buying calls instead of shares. There's a ton of variables here, but in the end you're either paying a lot of premium or still exposing yourself to a fair bit of downside. Depending on what you choose, you may only lose $8 to $20 in the worst case, but at least you'll still have infinite upside, minus a few dollars. In the end, this is kind of like a safer way of buying shares, but you have to fiddle with options, so I also rate this as a 7 for sleepability. Actually, I'm penalizing it, because if you're that worried about Nikola being a fraud or losing all your money, you should probably just invest in something else. Having said that, buying a call may be a good way to leverage up if you're short on cash. As an honorable mention, what if you're a big boy, or girl, who is confident Nikola is a fraud? Maybe Wall Street Bet says you should sell a naked call? Now, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but your upside's probably $40 at the very best. And with the market the way it is, I wouldn't be surprised if 2 minutes after seeing you sell that call, Nikola decided to slap a fat zero onto its share price, just like I'm gonna do with the sleepability. Psh, did I mention that there's infinite risk? Seriously though, consider buying a put or doing a credit spread instead. And that's that. If you enjoyed this video, please consider dropping a like, commenting, and subscribing to see future content. I have a few videos planned where I'll talk about other companies, and maybe I'll do an update in the future on how these strategies performed. What are your thoughts on Nikola? Let me know in the comments if you invest in Nikola and what strategies you use. Anyhow, thanks for watching and have a great day.